Welcome everybody to our WIN Speaker Series event today as part of Whatcom Water Week. And I'm Dakota Stranick. I am part of the Whatcom Speaker Series, the WIN Speaker Series team that plans this speaker series. The WIN stands for the Whatcom Watersheds Information Network. We are all kind of doing this on a volunteer capacity because we're interested in the subject matter and the engagement that it brings in educating our community. So my actual job is at Whatcom County Planning and Development Services, where I'm a natural resource planner. I'm relatively new to WIN, but I've just really appreciated their past events and wanted to help support. So I also want to acknowledge two other people from the planning committee who are here today, whose efforts really help make this event and others possible. So that's Austin Rose with Whatcom County Public Works and Rebecca Schlotterbach with the Whatcom County PUD or Public Utility District. So what is WIN? WIN is the Whatcom Watersheds Information Network. WIN's mission is to help protect and restore our local waters and watersheds, excuse me, through information exchange, collaboration, education, and public engagement. We are delighted to be hosting this event as part of our annual speaker series, which you can learn more about at whatcomwin.org/speaker-series. I'll put that link in the chat for anyone who would like to learn more. Also, as WIN speaker series are generally recorded, our website features a really great archive of past topics that I encourage you to explore. Also, at the bottom of any page on our website is a link to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. That's a great way to be notified of upcoming watershed events, as well as new research findings, water and natural resources news, free trainings, and funding opportunities. So we never try to sell you anything, share your email address, or ask you for money. So now on to the event. Please make sure that your microphone is muted unless asking a question. There will be time at the end of each segment for questions, and you can ask questions using the chat. No need to wait until the end of the discussion in order to type your question in, and we'll call on those during the pauses in between topics, or you can also raise your hand. If you're comfortable leaving your camera on, that would be really nice for our presenter. But if you're eating your lunch and would like some privacy, we understand, of course. So today's event is all about stormwater. We'll hear from my colleague, Mike Kershner, also with Whatcom County Planning and Development Services, who's graciously joined us today and provided his time. And he'll tell us all about how stormwater impacts water resources, as well as various stormwater mitigation techniques and local regulations. Mike has almost 19 years of experience working in the field as a planner, specializing in stormwater. In his role, he has worked with contractors, homeowners, developers, and elected officials. He has worked as a GIS technician and planner in local government for almost 26 years. Mike has a bachelor's in geography with a minor in GIS from Western Washington University. So take it away, Mike. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to share. So let me know. I think you should be good to go.
All right. Thank you for the intro. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. So as Dakota indicated, I work in stormwater resources for Whatcom County Planning and Development Services. So I review residential stormwater designs in certain areas like Birch Bay and Lake Whatcom and Lake Samish, where there are more stringent stormwater standards. So today I'm just going to kind of go over kind of the basics of stormwater and the basics of how to kind of mitigate those impacts, and then a little bit about the regulations, and then kind of open it up for questions. So if any of you have questions at any time, raise your hand or put it in the chat. I'll try and look at the chat. I'm not going to guarantee that I am going to be on top of it, but I assume that somebody else will let me know. So the first thing is, how does stormwater impact water resources? So in a natural environment, 40 to 50% of the water gets trapped by trees, branches, leaves, needles, and evapotranspirates back up into the air. And there's less than 1% surface runoff. With a lot of that water, a lot of the water that does make it in goes into interflow or goes back into the water table. When development occurs, you remove the trees, so it gets rid of that evapotranspiration capacity, and it increases to 30% surface runoff, with still some interflow and groundwater, but as you can see, less water goes into the ground, and can affect creek levels, wetland levels, things like that. And it increases the amount of water that goes to these and the temperature of them, temperature of the stormwater that goes there, which can affect basically anything biological in these areas. There are 3 different types of stormwater mitigation techniques. The first is dispersion. So that's where you're dispersing water over the surface of the ground. You're not relying on the soil itself to use that water. You're relying on the vegetation to kind of slow that water down and suck it up and use that water before it gets kind of off site. The most economically feasible way to do that is a splash block. If you have a certain amount of like 50 feet of vegetation between the splash block and a hard surface or a property line, then that should be enough vegetation to suck that water up before it gets to beyond that 50 feet. Another way is to use a dispersion trench, which you see on the right here, which is basically a 2 foot, 18-inch deep trench, or 2 foot deep trench, 18 inches wide, that then has rock, and it's open at the surface, and it allows the water to basically come in through a perforated pipe and build up, and so that it overflows out the side of this downhill through the vegetation. So those are the 2 most common ways of dispersing stormwater over the surface of the ground. The second way is infiltration. That's where you're actually utilizing the ground to suck that water, or to use that water. So you're basically injecting the water into the ground. This relies on on-site soil tests. So we need to know exactly what type of soils are on site, specifically where the high water table is and where any clay layers may be. Generally, if the high water table or clay layer is more than 3 feet from the surface, then you can generally do some sort of infiltration. If it's closer, then it kind of rules out infiltration of stormwater. And a picture on the right is a picture of some dry wells that were installed. And you can kind of see the middle diagram is a dry well, and the picture is kind of what it looks like in real life. The third is filtration. So using some sort of filter system to filter the water of any harmful pollutants, and then keep the water flowing out to usually some sort of a ditch or stormwater system. In this case, this is a pre-designed system from Wilson Engineering for the Sudden Valley Community Association. So the water comes in to the catch basin, overflows, and then goes into this perforated pipe where it goes through different layers of rock and media. And this media is very specific. It has certain types of gypsum and dolomite and all sorts of different types of materials that remove phosphorus. And then it goes into the pipe at the bottom, and then so it slows the water down, treats it, and then lets it flow out to an approved location. So the regulations in Whatcom County are a little patch.
Can we pause real quick, Mike? Sorry.
Of course. Yeah.
Just in case there's any questions, I did say we would pause between segments.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry.
Just to pause. I haven't seen anything in the chat. I just want to see if anybody wants to chime in with anything that's come up so far. Okay, we'll keep going.
Okay. All right. So the Whatcom County stormwater regulations, generally require the use of dispersion, infiltration, and filtration systems. Generally, the idea behind the regulations is to mimic the natural hydrologic cycle as closely as possible to pre-development standards. This is not, there's different regulations based on different geographic areas, but generally there are thresholds that are based on amount of new or replaced hard surface. Hard surface is defined as gravel areas, roof areas, paved areas, basically anything that doesn't allow water to get into the ground in a natural manner. And it also includes pervious pavements. All commercial, industrial, institutional, and multifamily residential are required to design to the most current Washington State Department of Ecology Stormwater Management Manual. That manual is kind of our best available science for stormwater, and it's generally required in certain areas that are a little bit more urbanized, which I'll get to in the next slide. The Lake Whatcom watershed has a threshold of 200 square feet of new or replaced hard surface. So anything within the boundaries of the watershed, the Lake Whatcom watershed, if you're adding or replacing more than 200 square feet of hard surface, you're required to provide a stormwater design that meets certain higher thresholds because of the TMDL, or the total maximum daily load study in Lake Whatcom. Because it is the drinking water source for Bellingham, it has a little bit higher standards than most everywhere else. And that's why the threshold is a little bit lower as well. In the Lake Samish, Lake Padden, Birch Bay, and Drayton Harbor watersheds, the threshold is 500 square feet. And the thresholds are a little bit, the stormwater requirements are a little bit less stringent. You're not necessarily required to follow the Department of Ecology Stormwater Manual. If you can disperse or infiltrate your water reasonably and meet the standards of those specific BMPs, then you can do that. It doesn't necessarily require a design to the DOE manual. Any questions on that? So in the urban growth areas surrounding Ferndale, Bellingham, and then the Birch Bay urban growth area, the threshold is 2,000 square feet of new or replaced hard surface. So the Federal Clean Water Act dictates to the states that they protect water bodies and surface water bodies from harmful impacts from development. The states turn around and say, local jurisdictions, cities and counties, you need to provide development standards for stormwater in these more urbanized areas. So those are generally areas that are more built out according to the US Census Bureau. So in those areas, to be consistent with so the county has a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit with the state. We are a phase 2 area, which basically means that we're of a certain size. And so to be consistent with our permit with the state, we have to regulate stormwater in those more urbanized areas. So in those areas, the Department of Ecology Stormwater Manual is required. The thresholds in that document are required to be used. And that's the 2,000 square feet that I referenced there. Outside of Lake Whatcom, Lake Samish, Lake Padden, Birch Bay, Drayton Harbor, and phase 2 areas, the thresholds are much higher, and it gets a little confusing, I admit. Basically, it's upwards of 45,000 square feet of hard surface would require a stormwater design, but it also depends on parcel size and it changes. Basically, the council intended to exempt normal single-family residential projects from the stormwater requirements in the rural areas so that it wouldn't put a burden on them. So that's where we're at now. Only really the biggest residential developments trigger those, and it's not many, but there are some regulations outside in the more rural areas of Whatcom County.
Michael, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
Could you please speak to areas adjacent to the Nooksack Valley where the water table is quite high?
So that would be subject to this. So this green area is those rural standards. So the idea behind the higher thresholds is that in theory you have bigger parcels and there's more room to mitigate your stormwater impacts, right? More area to disperse. In the, what was it, the Nooksack Valley area, was that it? I guess I could look.
Yeah, Nooksack
Yeah.
Valley, adjacent to the Nooksack Valley.
Yeah. We don't have anything particular in that area for residential development. Again, the assumption is that the parcels are big, so you'd be able to disperse the water and not have to rely on the high water table. There are also aquifer recharge areas that this might be a part of that our geologist, Andrew Weiser, would look at for potential impacts. But generally, the idea is that dispersing the water over the surface of the ground will allow vegetation and it will allow some water to get back into the ground, so you wouldn't be relying on that soil. So we don't have a ton there unless it's a big development.
Perhaps in those areas that could be also the clay factor that you were talking about, where infiltration isn't as good of an option.
Right. Yes. So just a quick look at the map. So the orange areas are the Birch Bay outside of the urban growth area, Drayton Harbor, Lake Samish, and then a little bit of Lake Padden down here. And I don't know, can you guys see my mouse as I move it around or no?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lake Whatcom, and then these blue areas are the phase 2. These are these more urbanized areas where we're legally obligated to use the Department of Ecology Stormwater Manual. Although in Lake Whatcom, it's more stringent than the DOE manual, so we use the Lake Whatcom standard. So that's kind of what that looks like. And the last thing is tree canopy retention. Because tree canopy does play such a large part in mimicking the hydrologic or the natural hydrologic cycle, the council has passed regulations in the Lake Whatcom, Lake Samish, and Lake Padden watersheds to limit the amount of tree canopy removal. There's 2 different types. One is tree canopy removal that is not associated with development. So if you have, say, a hazard tree, or you just want to cut down a tree in those areas, you would still have to get a tree removal permit, and we'd have to review whether it's less than 20% of the existing tree canopy. Tree removal associated with development, you get a certain percentage based on the size of your lot, with at least a minimum of 5,000 square feet to account for smaller lots. Think Sudden Valley, where lots are about 6,500 square feet on average. You still need some sort of buildable area, so not preventing development by retaining all the trees. It was something that the council wanted. I should also say that existing tree canopy is defined as the tree canopy in place as of January 1st, 2017. So it's a running tally. So you can't remove more than 20% of the existing tree canopy over the course of many years. It stays the same. So those are kind of the big overall stormwater pieces that we look at when we're regulating residential development. Are there any questions?
Mike, how different is it in the city boundaries for these types of regulations? Are they pretty similar? Are the requirements more or less the same, or are they different in the county jurisdiction?
Yes, the city, and I don't know if there are any city folks here. The city is also a phase 2 area. And so I believe they are also required to use the manual. I don't know how that works with smaller lots. Usually they have stormwater systems in the road. And so I think the end all be all is that if it doesn't trigger any of the thresholds, or there isn't room to infiltrate or use filters or to disperse, then they can probably just go to the stormwater system. But I think generally they're the same as those urbanized areas.
Thanks, Mike. So yeah, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. And we do have a few prepared to keep things rolling if folks are shy. So we'll give you a chance to chime in, and if we need to, we'll pop in ourselves with some ideas.
Yes, this is Doralee Booth. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't see where the hand was to raise my hand, sorry. Could you talk about, for example, the Birch Bay watershed? And if another jurisdiction was planning to build dense housing, we're doing the comp plan update now, and dense housing within the Birch Bay UGA on a slope. Excuse me, outside the Birch Bay UGA, but it's on a slope. It's Birch Point.
Okay.
What what kind of regulations would Birch Bay be able to have or whatever? Because this stormwater will be cascading down and possibly flooding parts of Birch Bay as well as ending up in the bay. So we're kind of concerned.
So it's outside of the UGA. We're not talking about a particular development, or are we talking about a particular development that's?
We're talking about annexing land in as new land that would be connected to the city, but is in the Birch Bay watershed.
Okay. If that were annexed or brought into the UGA, I assume that
No, excuse me, it would be brought, they're trying to bring it into the city.
And
into the
Blaine?
city of Blaine.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know. I know that they would be, I think Blaine is also a phase 2 jurisdiction, but I'm not sure. They would still be on for a project of, sounds like that size. They would still be required to provide engineered stormwater designs for something that big. It would go through SEPA. You could comment through SEPA that if they weren't proposing some sort of stormwater designs, or they were proposing minimal designs, you could say it's not consistent with, development just right next to it in the county. So I can only speak theoretically that I believe they would be required to provide some pretty heavy duty stormwater designs, kind of like, so Horizons right now is being built out.
But
And then
Horizon is in the Birch Bay UGA, and they have,
right,
yeah, they've been stringent in the county's been relatively stringent with them.
right. And there's one just northwest of that in the city. And I think that they're using the same engineering firm. And I think they're having to go through basically the same process. I think. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
Okay. Well, what was it about it that what do you still have questions about?
Well, the other thing is that, let's say it doesn't work. And, we have BB Warm where in Birch Bay, our stormwater district, where we pay fees. And we are now having to look at some very, very expensive systems to convey stormwater down some of our Shintaffer subwater basin and also Birch Point. And so we're taxpayers in Birch Bay are continually paying for these upgrades and, filtered systems and to come down into the bay because, we're so concerned about keeping Birch Bay, the wonderful treasure that it is to our community, because that's why we're all here. And so we're just concerned, would we be necessarily picking up the tab for this stormwater coming down on us?
That is a really big question that I don't think I have the answers to. There's multiple jurisdictions involved. If they're directing water into the county, into county systems, I assume that there would be some sort of discussion back and forth. When you talk about who would pay for it, we start talking about liability. our prosecuting attorney's office doesn't like for us to talk about who's liable for things. So I just don't know enough about it to say who would and wouldn't. I do know that we are noticed in we're noticed on SEPA for a lot of these big projects. We submit comments. We look at the plans. If they're looking at hooking into county systems, I know that our public works department is not super excited to accept a bunch of water without any sort of monetary or financial assurances, or just to pick up the. They don't want to pick up the tab, and they don't want the citizens of Whatcom County to pick up the tab for a project that's not in their system. So I think that there's a lot of back and forth that goes along with that, and that, I guess that's a little bit more than I deal with on a daily basis as well.
Sure.
So
I can chime in real quick that there was actually, so the UGA expansion proposals were recently went in front of the Planning Commission on September 11th. And they had quite detailed reports that they presented on. And so I think you may be able to find, there may be mention in those documents of specific stormwater efforts that are underway, and those certainly aren't finalized at all. They're still under review, but if you look up the Planning Commission documents from September 11th, you may be able to find something that's useful there.
Blaine wasn't at that meeting though.
Oh,
They pulled out at the last minute to present at that meeting. So they're scheduled for actually October 9th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And to follow up with that, another Birch Bay resident concerned about this issue, I put in the chat the Avista project. So for example, phase 1 of the Avista project, formerly known as Semiahmoo Highlands, is in the city of Blaine. And from us paying attention to things like SEPA and trying to comment when we can, their first 50 homes or whatever in that phase is in the city of Blaine, but the overall project is much more of it is actually in Whatcom County currently, but they're not going for approval of that. And there's been a rush to, we were getting determinations of non-significance on the SEPA and things before we even can blink and make comment. And those projects are going to affect downhill towards Birch Bay, and the Birch Bay UGA butts right up against to it now. And if they are given this UGA expansion, the impacts are exponential. And several of us were at that meeting on September 11th, and we'll go again when and if Blaine ever shows up to present theirs, which right now is looking like October 9th. So very late in the process. And the cities in Whatcom County have, they have staff to be looking at this all the time. And we in Birch Bay just have us paying attention. And then we have planning and development services, people like such as yourselves, but you're looking at so many other areas. And it's concerning for us that this is happening, and it's a huge impact on the Birch Bay watershed. And the Birch Bay watershed, I believe it's called the Watershed Characterization Study that just came out recently. It's pretty intense what's required out there, but it sort of feels like it's being steamrolled and leapfrogged over because City of Blaine is driving it versus Whatcom County and the citizens of the Birch Bay UGA.
That may all very well be true. I don't know enough about the projects to speak to any of that, but you can see my contact information on the screen. And if you want to email me directly, I can put you in touch with at least one planner, if not, and then Public Works Engineering Services is the group that actually reviews kind of the large scale, long plat, and commercial industrial stormwater designs. They would probably be the ones who would be involved in any sort of review of a stormwater project that may affect us. So feel free to give me send an email in writing. I think that having things in writing is always good. And then I can forward you on to the appropriate staff. I can ask around and see what, because I'm sure that we have staff that are involved in this. I just don't know off the top of my head what it may be. So feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the appropriate people.
like to speak.
Sure.
The area that they're talking about is Birch Point. And Birch Point used to have a small water group, water district. When development started in Semiahmoo, the drainage patterns changed, and this water district lost their water. It drained away, they couldn't get it. So they had to join Birch Bay Water Sewer District. Now, as development happened in Semiahmoo, more and more water would come down towards Birch Bay. Right now, during the winter, Birch Bay Village sets up a pump to pump water from one ditch over to another area so it drains out into the bay.
Yes.
So it's a problem, and it'll be a growing problem. And yes, Birch Bay pays into Birch Bay Warm a good chunk of money just to take care of some of the drainage, the stormwater issues. So this is really important, and it needs to be discussed. I do appreciate your presentation. I thought it was excellent. I'm looking forward to looking at the book. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, it is important. Nobody denies that. We are looking at each project as they come in. Bigger projects mean bigger impacts. And so we look at those accordingly. Again, I can get you in touch with the appropriate staff if you want. I have not been a part of those bigger projects, but I know the people who are. So feel free to contact me.
Mike, there was a request. I think I'm interpreting this as, can we stop sharing the presentation so that we can maybe see better people's faces?
Sure.
I'm guessing is what the request was about. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's tricky because there's sort of overlapping jurisdictions and overlapping processes here, and the comp plan is definitely this huge process. So appreciate all of your concerns. Any other questions in general? Maybe on like a smaller scale, Mike, like when it's less complex with these big, larger developments and intricacies with jurisdiction, how does it work if you're both in the same jurisdiction? So you're both in county jurisdiction and you're just neighbors, and your neighbor is impacting your lot with their stormwater management or lack thereof. Maybe it's an older home that, who knows when those systems were installed, and maybe they haven't been maintained. How does that work, and how would somebody go about dealing with those issues? Would they contact code enforcement or?
So unfortunately, that's a civil issue. It's like if you went on your neighbor's property and did something to their house or their property. If they were like, say, directing their stormwater directly at your house, 3 feet away, then that would be something you'd have to work out with the neighbor, unfortunately. What we do see a lot of, especially in Birch Bay, is drainage pipes and tiles that were installed anywhere from the past 30 to 60 plus years, and they kind of go wherever they may go. And so in those cases, we don't have, they were prior to any stormwater regulations, right? And contractors just put them wherever. So we basically say, if you have a solution, notify a contractor, get a contractor out there, come up with a plan, and we'll tell you kind of like if you need a permit or not. Generally, if you're protecting your property, that's all well and good. We want you to protect your property. But we do also have to make sure that you're not just directing it at somebody else's property. So it's up to the public to come up with, or the property owner to come up with a solution. And then we kind of work through the process to make sure that it's following the codes and not impacting neighbors.
What are some landowner options in those situations if they're having issues with, say, an older home? Can they design their own system, or when might they need to hire an engineer?
So generally in those situations, they shouldn't need to hire an engineer because they're just directing water away from their house. So we're just talking about a series of pipes. Water's always going to go downhill. So if there's an easy way to get it downhill and into a stormwater system, then that's probably the easiest way to do it. Some people put in catch basins and maybe pump it back uphill to a street system or something like that. But really, capturing it in a pipe, putting in a French drain that then goes to a catch basin or a pipe that then directs it to a safe place is probably the best, most feasible way to deal with it. Patrick.
Yes. There's a drain pipe that was placed in when the Air Force Station came to Birch Bay. And it runs along Morrison Avenue to the creek.
Okay.
That area back there floods frequently. My property doesn't flood, but there's a lot of places that flood back there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like if they could tap into that pipe, it would help the area behind me not flood so much.
Okay.
But I don't think the county wants to touch the pipe. They don't even seem to act like it's there, except for they do clean out the opening of it, which is not very far away from here. But I think might be one of those things that I'll contact you on sometime.
Sure. If it is it's not the stream, right? It's not the creek.
No,
Okay.
but it's a pipe that actually connects to the creek now. And I think
Okay.
it could be drained into in such a way that if the water was high in the pipe, it wouldn't allow drainage into it. I think it could solve problems for a lot of people that would be simple. So I'll bring it to you sometime.
Sure. Yes, so that sounds very much like something that BB Warm would be able to use funds for as far as a drainage maintenance project or upgrade. So that would be probably Craig Olison to start with, or Kathy Craver. But absolutely, yeah. By all means, contact me. I'd love to know the details, and we can kind of figure it out from there. Anybody else?
All right. I think we have time for a couple more questions. If anybody has anything lingering. I'm just checking our little list of ideas here as well. Oh, can you speak a little bit about rain gardens?
Oh yeah. So rain gardens are essentially one of those filter systems, but they are small depressional areas that can be easily built by property owners. They are depressional areas where you direct your stormwater from your downspouts, and then you put usually some sort of topsoil or filter or media soil in the bottom within wood chips, and then you can plant it with appropriate plants based on the amount of water that it would get, based on like higher in the rain garden versus lower. There is a very, very handy handbook from the Washington State University, I believe Pierce County Extension, that is really good at describing how to build these, how to locate them, the types of plants that are appropriate. I can put that in the chat. But they are a very easy way to, say, retrofit a property, or a very easy way to deal with some of your stormwater, that I highly encourage, because they are very helpful, and I think that they look better than a trench, and they use plants, which is always nice.
Yeah, there could be some multiple benefits there for pollinators and habitat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I believe the Conservation District has some resources as well for rain gardens, especially in Lake Whatcom watershed, and I want to say also possibly Birch Bay area. Is that, and Blaine, is that correct? Are you familiar with those?
Say that again.
I believe that the Conservation District has done some projects in the past around rain gardens, especially in Lake Whatcom watershed and possibly Blaine Birch Bay area. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, so that might have been part of the HIP, which is the homeowner incentive program. It's now changed to the Native Neighborhood Landscaping Program. I think I got that wrong. Maybe Holly can correct me. But yes, I think there were some designs for rain gardens and retrofitting properties. A lot of it now, the Neighborhood Landscaping Program is geared towards removing landscape like grass and replacing it with native vegetation and mulch. But there have been some of those out there, correct?
And it looks like we have one more question in the chat, probably our last question. Do you have thoughts on sponge cities,
Ooh,
an approach for areas that are experiencing high precipitation levels?
ooh, I admit that is the first time I have heard that term, so I'm not sure. I don't have an answer, but I'd be interested to look into it. If you want to contact me, send me an email. I would do some research and get back to you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
We're going to start to wrap things up here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. To wrap things up, I just want to give a hearty thank you to our speaker, Mike Kershner, for taking time out of his day to share his stormwater expertise with us. And also,
Thank you very much.
yes, thank you, Mike. A big thank you to Austin Rose and Rebecca Schlotterbach for helping on the back end. And also a big thank you to all of you for your enthusiasm and your engagement to learn and participate with us. So an important part of these events is getting feedback to improve future events. So we ask that you please take 5 minutes to complete our very brief and anonymous survey, which I'll share in the chat and also in a follow-up email afterwards. I'll also post the link to our monthly newsletter again. There are a number of exciting events still to come as part of Whatcom Water Week, including an opportunity tonight at 5:30 to tour the City of Bellingham's drinking water treatment plant, and that will be with another WIN team member, Haley Sanders, with the City of Bellingham. Our next WIN Speaker Series event will be on Thursday, September 25th from 3 to 4:30, and this is a really cool, unique event. It's at the Blaine Public Library. It's Shared Waters of the Salish Sea is the title, and it will be a film screening and conversation with the filmmaker. Join us for a screening of 3 short documentary films from Original Pursuit and Plum Productions about 2 iconic threatened species in the Pacific Northwest, the southern resident orcas and the Chinook salmon that they need for survival. There will be a Q&A with the filmmaker Jessica Plum after the screening. And again, that's September 25th from 3 to 4:30. Details are posted on the Whatcom County Library events page and will be posted on the WIN Speaker Series page shortly. I believe it's also on the Whatcom Water Week page as well. So thank you, everybody. That's all for now. I'll make sure those links get in the chat, and we appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.
And I just added the Rain Garden Handbook link in the chat too. So
Awesome. Thank
okay.
you. Yep.
Thank you, Dakota. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dakota. I'm gonna bounce off, okay?
All right. Bye-bye.